Please stand quietly with your hand over your heart as the colors are paraded into the assembly. Mr. Buzzard, will you please call in the colors?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. What? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please give your attention to Jacob Long as he sings the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please be seated.
The Veterans Day National Ceremony is held each year on November 11th at Arlington National Cemetery. This ceremony starts precisely at 11 a.m. with a wreath laying at the Tomb of the Unknowns, followed by a parade of colors. The ceremony is intended to honor and thank all who served in the United States Armed Forces. At AC Valley, we're here today to celebrate and honor the local veterans for their patriotism and willingness to serve and sacrifice for our common good. We would like to formally thank all the veterans among us who, despite the risk, chose to serve and defend this beautiful country. These veterans, active duty guardsmen, and reservists are the reason our country and its people are safe and free. The military men and women who serve and protect the U.S. come from all walks of life. Their grandparents, parents, children, friends, neighbors, and coworkers, and are a very important part of our communities. Here are some facts. 18.2 million living veterans served at least one war. 9% of veterans are women. 7 million veterans served during the Vietnam War. 3 million veterans have served in support of the war on terrorism. 16 million Americans served in World War II. 2 million veterans served during the Korean conflict. If it wasn't for these brave men and women, we would not have the opportunities to pursue our dreams, and many are still contributing to our communities today. For example, a few years ago, retired Marine Clarence Hassenflue, 86 years old at the time, better known as Pistol Pete, provided the Butler VA Medical Center with the famous sculpture of the Marines lifting the American flag during the Battle of Iwo Jima. Selfish acts like this, which makes our veterans so special. Office of Veterans Affairs Executive Officer Stanley Lacupo once said, "Our debt to these heroes can never be repaid, but our gratitude and respect must last forever." On behalf of the AC Valley School District, we thank all the veterans for your service to our great nation. And before I turn over the mic to Leah, I'd like to also thank the AC Valley School Board for putting faith in us and letting us have school today to have this Veterans Day program in honor of these fine men and women in front of us. In addition to Mrs. Luce, with her involvement, Dr. Jordan, Mrs. Sherman for their leadership, Mrs. McKinley, Culinary Arts and Family Consumer Science students, Mr. Aaron Howe, Mr. Trevor Howe, Mr. RJ Fight, Mr. Green and the band, Mrs. Lowry and the choir, the elementary students who made the art, and the select 5 and 6 students who will be performing today, Parker Post 7073, our maintenance and custodian workers, and especially Miss Emily Shoemaker for all of her work. I hope you have a wonderful day, veterans.
Since our nation's founding, brave men and women have taken up arms to defend the truth set forth in the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Time and time again, ordinary people have served our nation in extraordinary ways so that all Americans can pursue the happiness our founding fathers envisioned. By their service, they have kept America strong and they have protected our way of life for more than 2 centuries. At this moment, men and women of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, and Coast Guard are serving around the world. As Americans, we have set aside today, November 11th, to reflect, remember, and honor those who have served in previous wars, those who are serving today, and those who did not live to become veterans. Our nation is blessed by these brave defenders. We owe a debt of gratitude to all those who have worn America's uniform with pride.
At this time, the band will play Freedom's March by James Swearington. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, an armistice or temporary cessation of hostilities was declared between the Allied nations and Germany in the First World War, then known as the Great War. November 11th was commemorated as Armistice Day beginning in 1919 by President Wilson in these words, "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for the victory, both because of the thing from which it has freed us and because of the opportunity it has given America to show our sympathy with peace and justice in the councils of the nations." The original concept for the celebration was for a day observed with parades, public meetings, and a brief suspension of business beginning at 11 a.m. November 11th eventually became a legal federal holiday in the United States in 1938. Then, in the aftermath of World War II and the Korean War, Armistice Day became known as Veterans Day, a holiday dedicated to American veterans who fought in any war for our country. President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the legislation on June 1st, 1954, making November 11th a day to honor all American veterans of all wars. We are not simply born with the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They had to be fought for by our veterans. Veterans Day is our opportunity to honor those who have protected America and helped to shape it into what it is today. Woodrow Wilson explained, "To all us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with lots of pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service and with gratitude for the victory, both because of the thing from which it has freed us and because of the opportunity it has given America to show her sympathy with peace, justice, and the councils of the nations." Ordinary citizens became soldiers with very little in return. They put their own interests, time, and family members aside to protect their country and keep America strong. These courageous people have always been and will always be the first line of defense to keep us safe in our country. They keep America together and whole. Every year in November, the nation marks the wars that have scarred our past and the bravery of the men and women who fought them. Elmer Davis, the director of the United States Office of War Information during World War II, once said, "This nation will remain the land of the free only so long as it is the home of the brave." The brave veterans in this auditorium today are the reason we are the land of the free. Today, Veterans Day is a holiday built on remembering and honoring sacrifices these brave men and women have given. This country owes a certain gratitude to those men and women who have worn America's colors with pride.
At this time, our distinguished military guests will introduce themselves. Please go around stating your name and what branch you served in.
Fred slogging up, U.S. Air Force, 72 to 76.
Okay. Kenneth Cipher, U.S. Army, 1989 to 2018.
Dan Myers, United States Marine Corps, 1970 to 1974.
Larry Stewart, U.S. Air Force, Vietnam, 69-70.
Charles Davis, Vietnam, 67 to 69, United States Army.
Dennis Ashbaugh, United States Navy, 72 to 75.
Al Fritz, United States Navy Seabees, Vietnam, 68-69.
Patrick McGinnis, Army Reserve, 2000 to 2008.
Jack Buzzard, U.S. Army, Vietnam, 69 to 71.
Tom Newbill, U.S. Navy Seabee. Yeah. 93 to 2005.
Dave Elam, Air Force, 1977 to 2007.
Mark Morozic, U.S. Army, 2012 to 2020.
Kenneth Folkson, United States Navy, 1980 to 1990.
United States Army, 1998 to 2009.
Charlotte Fox, U.S. Army Nurse Corps from 1968 to 1988, Vietnam 70, 71.
Bill Zimmerman, Navy, 1962 to 1969.
Jim Marin, United States Army over in Okinawa from 1967 to 1969.
If there are any other veteran guests in attendance today, would you please rise to be recognized?
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw, the torch be yours to hold it high, with ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. Mr. Green and the AC Valley Band will now play each branch's service song. Please stand if you are able while your branch's song is being played.
Now, Mrs. Lowry and the choir will sing America the Beautiful, composed by Samuel A. Ward, arranged by Mary McDonald, and lyrics by Catherine L. Bates.
Please welcome our elementary students as they pay tribute to our veterans through a reading of America's White Table.
America's White Table, written by Margot Thies Raven and illustrated by Mike Benny. It was just a little white table, but it brought tears of pride to my Uncle John's eyes the Veterans Day he came for dinner and stood by it, set for one person, even though nobody would be eating at it. My country, 'tis of thee. It was just a little white table, but earlier that day, Mama had told Gretchen, Samantha, and me the little table we were setting for Veterans Day was just like the ones that have stood across America in the dining halls of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force since the Vietnam War ended. The tables honor the men and women who serve in America's armed forces, especially those missing in action, our MIAs, and those held prisoner of war, our POWs. Sweet land of liberty. It was just a little white table, but it felt as big as America when we helped Mama put each item on it, and she told us why it was so important. We use a small table, girls, she explained first, to show one soldier's lonely battle against many. We cover it with a white cloth to honor a soldier's pure heart when he answers his country's call to duty. We place a lemon slice and grains of salt on a plate to show a captive soldier's bitter fate and tears of families waiting for loved ones to return, she continued. We push an empty chair to the table for the missing soldiers who are not here. We lay a black napkin for the sorrow of captivity and turn over a glass for the meal that won't be eaten, she said. We place a white candle for peace and finally a red rose in a vase tied with a red ribbon for the hope that all our missing will return someday. Mama finished speaking just as sunlight spilled on the table and filled the overturned glass. Of thee I sing. It was just a little white table, but it suddenly made me want to burst with a feeling I couldn't explain when Mama told us how much our setting the white table would mean to Uncle John that night. Then she told us something we didn't know. Our Uncle John, who gave us big bear hugs and spun us with airplane twirls and called me his Katie girl, was a POW in Vietnam before we were born. It was just a little white table, but it gave us the courage to ask Mama what happened to Uncle John in Vietnam. She quietly told us his story. When Uncle John served in Vietnam, he was sent on a rescue mission, and his helicopter was shot down behind enemy lines, she began. Land where my fathers died. And he and his 3 crew members were taken prisoner. One crew member named Mike had serious wounds from the crash, but Uncle John and the other man tried to help Mike get better and persuaded a guard to bring Mike medicine. Then one day, when a guard looked away, Uncle John and the other had a chance to escape, but Mike was still too sick to go. So Uncle John stayed behind because he wouldn't leave a fellow soldier alone so far from home. Land of the Pilgrim's Pride. But how did Uncle John get free? We asked Mama. Sometime later, Uncle John had a chance to escape again, and somehow he was able to take Mike with him, carrying him on his back, and collecting just enough rainwater and big leaves to keep them alive until Uncle John found an American infantry unit to help them. But even though Uncle John did everything he could to bring Mike home alive, Mike's wounds were just too serious, and he died before the rescue helicopter landed. I know that Mike was only 20 years old and he dreamed of playing football, but he loved America enough to give his life for his country when duty called. And I know how much Uncle John loves America, too, but he learned when helping Mike that a soldier risks his life for a fellow soldier, because the best of your country lives in every man and woman who would lay down their life for you, too. From every mountainside. It was just a little white table, but it needed words of gratitude, like Mama's Thanksgiving meal. So before Uncle John arrived for dinner, Gretchen and Samantha and I decided to put 3 gifts of our own on the table to honor our veterans. Gretchen colored pictures of all the objects on the table, and Samantha wrote out the words of "My country, 'tis of thee" as a tribute in song. But I didn't know what I, a 10-year-old girl, could ever put on the table that was as important as each veteran's gift of freedom to me. It was just a little white table, but I looked at it all dinner long, and in the quiet inside me, I could almost hear the silent soldiers of the empty chair saying, "Remember us, please. We are real people like your uncle and Mike, who left families and friends, homes, and dreams of our own to protect your birthright of liberty from disappearing as easily as sunlight from a glass. Let freedom ring." It was just a little white table, but it took my words away when I hugged Uncle John goodnight and wanted to thank him for serving our country so bravely. So I just hugged him even harder and told him I loved him. Uncle John hugged me back even harder than I had hugged him. And that's when I knew what I could put on the table. I promised to put the words from my heart into a little book about America's white table. And in the book, I'd use Gretchen's pictures and Samantha's song and Mama's story about Uncle John and his friend Mike. Because I hoped that everyone who read it would set a white table on Veterans Day too. So the brave Americans, the little table honors, won't ever feel forgotten by the country they loved so much. Then in the salt on the little white table, I traced in the grains of their families' tears what each man and woman who serve America is to me, a hero. And that's when I saw the tears of pride fill my Uncle John's eyes.
On Veterans Day, we honor all who answer to a service call. Soldiers young and soldiers old fought for freedom, brave and bold. Some have lived while others died, and all of them deserve our pride. We're proud of all the soldiers who kept thinking of red, white, and blue. They fought for us and all our rights. They fought through many days and nights. And though we may not know each name, we thank all the veterans just the same.
Please join us in singing "My Country, 'Tis of Thee."
This year's keynote speaker will be Sergeant Danielle Lutz. Danielle was born and raised in Akron, Ohio. After graduation, she enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. Upon graduation from basic training in November 2004, she attended Marine Combat Training and Military Occupation Specialist School. She was stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and served 8 years of active duty until she was medically retired in 2012. During her service, Sergeant Lutz completed 3 combat tours, 2 in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan, where she served in various roles and missions. Some of her awards and accomplishments include a Green Belt in Marine Corps Martial Arts, the Motivator Award, 2 Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medals, 2 Good Conduct Medals, 3rd Award Iraq Campaign Medal, 2nd Award Afghanistan Campaign Medal, and a NATO Service Medal. She met her husband, also a veteran, in the Marine Corps. Together, they have 2 children and reside in Emlenton. She works here at AC Valley as a child-specific aide. In May 2024, she graduated from Penn West University with a bachelor degree in criminal justice. Please welcome Sergeant Danielle Lutz.
Good morning. It is my honor to be here today to discuss the importance of Veterans Day and why we celebrate it. And I hope that you may leave here with a new appreciation and understanding of the American veteran. Veterans Day is observed annually on November 11th. The day honors military veterans who have served in the United States Armed Forces. It originally began as Armistice Day, marking the end of World War I in 1919. It was a celebration of the Armistice Agreement between the Allied forces and Germany that was signed on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. In 1954, after World War II and the Korean War, Congress expanded the holiday to include all veterans of all wars, marking November 11th as a day to recognize all of them. And while typically we view military men and women as war fighters, it is also important to remember that a veteran is defined as anyone who has served our country in the military, whether at wartime or peacetime. Veterans span multiple generations, from the older generation who served in conflicts such as World War II and Vietnam, to younger veterans who have served in more recent conflicts, such as Iraq and Afghanistan. The experiences, challenges, and outlooks of these veterans can vary greatly, shaped by the time periods in which they have served. And while historically the military has been male-dominated, the number of women serving in the armed forces through the years has grown significantly. Today's women in the military have made great strides, but they still face many obstacles. However, women have demonstrated that they are capable, resilient, and essential members of the military forces worldwide. Veterans come from many racial, ethnic, and economic backgrounds. They hail from big cities, small towns, and rural areas all across the country. Some join the military straight out of high school, often as a way to gain education, training, or even financial stability. Others may come from more affluent backgrounds or may have pursued higher education before serving. Their experiences, perspectives, and identities are rich and varied, making the military and veteran community one of the most dynamic and multifaceted groups in the country. Military service has a profound impact on both veterans and their families, molding their lives in various ways. The effects of service can be physical, psychological, emotional, and social, and these impacts can last long after a service member has left the military. Military service, especially in combat zones, can leave with lasting physical injuries such as amputations, traumatic brain injuries, chronic pain, and exposure to hazardous materials leading to illness. The psychological toll can be equally significant, with many veterans experiencing PTSD, depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. Some of these mental health issues might be linked to the trauma of combat, while others stem from the stress of military life, such as separation from family and pressure of military responsibilities. The impact of military service on veterans and their families is far-reaching and complex. While many veterans demonstrate resilience and successfully transition to civilian life, the challenges they face, whether physical, psychological, or social, are significant. On this Veterans Day, let us reflect on and honor the extraordinary men and women who have worn the uniform and served with honor. Their sacrifices remind us of the true cost of freedom, and it is our duty to carry their legacy forward. To all the veterans here today, and to those who are no longer with us, thank you. We are forever grateful for your service and sacrifices. Thank you. Have a good day.
While Veterans Day is primarily a tribute to America's living veterans, it is typically observed more as a celebration than as a somber remembrance, and it is always appropriate to include a moment of respect for those who gave their lives for their country. Will you please stand for a moment of silence?
I am the unknown soldier who in futile death stands tall, and if I were alive to serve once more, I'd answer my country's call.
Today, there are more than 24 million living veterans who are among our nation's finest citizens. We honor their solemn pledge to defend our freedom, and we thank them for their example of service and sacrifice. Please take a look at the artwork outside the auditorium created by the AC Valley students to show our gratitude. Mr. Buzzard, will you retire the colors? Please stand quietly with your hand over your heart as the colors are paraded out of the assembly. As you exit the auditorium, the military guests will be in the lobby. Please feel free to shake their hands, thank them, and show your appreciation for all that they have done for us. This concludes the ceremony. Dr. Jordan will dismiss the auditorium by section.
We would like to thank everyone for their reverence